Present day. Present time.
I don't know why every time that there's like a newbie that wants to use Linux, people always recommend Ubuntu. And from experience, I don't think Ubuntu is really a friendly beginner distro because I'm talking for experience. When I was in elementary school, I've always wanted to use Linux. I always thought it was like the coolest thing. And people would recommend me to use Ubuntu. Ubuntu, like, yes, it did things and it had GUI, but I owe it every time I wanted to join Linux, I always ran into the same problem. And as a beginner, I feel like when I was a beginner, this was like really like confusing. Like a lot of those forums, they were really outdated and they told me to install a certain package to the terminal. And I will basically do that and it told me it wasn't there. I would spend hours and hours reading how to get this dependency because Ubuntu doesn't really like when you install a package, a lot of the times some dependencies are installed, but not all of them. And the terminal doesn't really tell me what I'm missing. Not only that, I'll have to like read to the documentation, which is really outdated. And eventually I'll find myself where it sends me to a GitHub project. And when I was a beginner, I didn't know how to compile and how to build your own package. So a lot of those dependencies, you have to build them yourself for a GitHub project. And that sort of thing kind of scares like a beginner away from not really using Linux, which is what happened to me while I was in elementary. Like because of that, it wasn't like a clear instructions in the GitHub how to build I mean, there was instructions, but then like they didn't say you needed this tool and this other tool. You have to install this other tool. And I think that's one really different thing when it comes to Linux. I mean, to Arch, I meant Arch Linux. When it comes to Arch Linux, yes, there's documentation, but it's really specific. And it makes sure that before it starts explaining, it tells you certain tools you will need to install. And I think Arch is even different because when you're missing a dependency, it tells you exactly what dependency you need. You don't have to grab or do anything like that. And so I think Ubuntu it's one of those distros that talking from experience, it does scare like new people. What if I tell you there's actually a way to have a stable experience and make Arch Linux way more stable if you follow these simple rules? First of all, respect the privacy of others. Think before you type. With great power comes great responsibility. Just kidding, that's the RuneScape rules. Anyway, let's get serious about this for a second. So, there's one golden rule that you should follow on Linux, on Arch Linux, that I never hear anyone talk about that I feel like I should be talking about. What if I tell you that I actually recommend for beginners Arch Linux or a distro that's based on Arch that dummies things down till the person it's comfortable? But also, what if I tell you that there's a way to have a stable experience on Arch Linux? Well, there's this one golden rule that really helps. So you could actually have a really stable experience under Arch Linux if you follow the simple golden rule. But before we go into that rule, let's talk about what Arch Linux like something really important of what Arch Linux is. So Arch Linux is a rolling release distribution. So what does that mean? That means that in a way you're kind of like a testing ground. So you get the greatest and latest. And Arch Linux is not really what it used to be. Like it used to be a lot more complicated. Now you got even a GUI to install it. Like as soon as you boot up into that drive, you start Arch install, and you will get a GUI to actually install Arch. It's gotten a lot easier. And I remember before when I always wanted to get into Linux, people told me, "Oh, Ubuntu is for beginners. Ubuntu, blah, use Ubuntu." And I was never able to get into Linux because of Ubuntu, because of documentation, how bad everything was. I just hated it. Packages that told me, "Hey, this package is in the terminal." You go there, it's not there. You got to go into a GitHub, build a whole package. That intimidated me at first. And I always heard how hard Arch was and how this and that and blah. But then one day I decided to download Arch and I installed it and I was like, wait, every package I want is actually in the package manager or in the Yay package manager. So, and everything worked out of the box. I I didn't really have things breaking, but eventually something did break and I will fix it, but it has really good documentation. But eventually I came to this conclusion of this one rule that allows me to actually have an Arch experience without breaking everything and having all these issues. And that one golden rule is update your machine only on Tuesdays and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern. Why? Well, the thing is, Tuesdays and Wednesdays is usually when a package or an update is stable. Those are the days that the most stable version of that app and all these updates is launched. If you update your machine on a day later than that, you're risking to have everything broken because that's when they're still in the testing ground and the app hasn't been fully tested. So yeah, it is possible to have a stable Arch experience. Like I feel one of the things that makes Arch so great is like I think it's super simple. I don't think people say, "Oh, it's harder than it's really not." You those people are kind of stuck in the past. Ours has changed a lot. Not only that, everything could freaking go through a package manager. Like you don't see that in Ubuntu. And for a beginner, if you install Arch and you find it too complicated, you should, especially because I know I have a lot of gamers in my channel. If vanilla Arch is too complicated for you, try something that it's based on Arch, and maybe choose a distro that's directed at what you want to do. If you want a game, I recommend one specific. I'm, I'll be honest, I'm really biased when it comes to Arch distros, base distros, because a lot of the ones they all do the same thing, but everything comes install. Like anything you need is going to come out of the box. And even though I'm biased, I do like one specific Arch based distro that I actually would recommend to the beginning, and that distro is CachyOS. Ca- why CachyOS? Well, of all the Arch based distro when it comes to gaming, CachyOS is one of those distros that comes with everything out of the box, but it doesn't come with extremely too much stuff that you don't need to the point it feels bloated. It just has everything you need to get your gaming and all your stuff running, you know? And the other thing is that the CachyOS kernel is so good. It's actually so good and so optimized that people from other that develop kernels actually who develop kernels usually they base their kernel on the CachyOS kernel because it's so good and so optimized. Not only that, CachyOS comes optimized out of the box. This is actually the only distro I will say that I could probably if I w- this is the only Arch distro that if I have the option and let's say I didn't use Art Vanilla Arch first, I definitely could see myself in the long run with CachyOS. CachyOS, they have like all your updates to the GUI for those people that don't want to touch the terminal or do anything crazy like that. Some people are afraid of a terminal. When I started Linux, I wasn't really afraid of a terminal. Like it was pretty simple. Like if you're on Windows, once in a while you got to go into CMD to fix stuff. So it wasn't any different for me. If not, I thought that the terminal was way simpler on Linux. as compared to Windows. I do not like the terminal on Windows, the CMD. And I'm not trying to say that all these other distros and distros based on a certain distro don't have a purpose. Like I could see how certain people with certain workflows it could serve a purpose. I feel like every version of a distribution that's based on a distribution, they all serve a purpose for a certain type of person. I'm not saying that they're useless or that the distro you use is trash. I'm just saying that personally for me, I think a lot of the things were unnecessary. And I'm the type of person that if I want to use a certain distro or try something new, I don't want to use something that's based on something. I want to go to the root, the OG. Well, the OG in this case will be Gentoo, but there's no fucking way I'm compiling all my packages. Anyway, guys, you guys enjoyed my video about how to have a stable experience on Arch. Like my button, comment, give me a like, give me a comment, do all that, subscribe. And until next time, remember, stay spooky and stay weird. Bye.